Well, thank you guys for joining. Does Compute? Today is actually the final episode, and it's crazy. We've been doing this for about 4 months now. About 4 months every single week. We've had a really cool guest or project join on the show to talk about the state of the market, specifically the state of AI. Over the last couple weeks, we've transitioned into some more broad market subjects, but it's really just been an absolute blast and an honor hosting the show over the past couple months. And big shout out to Poopa Loop there, who just joined in because this show would not have been possible without him and his help. But the show does go on, and we have a pretty momentous episode today because tomorrow is, as it's been dubbed, Liberation Day. As you can see from our title of April 2nd, Do or Die, the market is kind of hanging in the balance as we've seen over the past couple of weeks and months here. And almost all of it ties back to this tariff talk that's been coming out of the US. And just to frame it all, it's really interesting that crypto has gotten into this position. Usually at MVHQ, we just try to shy away from politics in our shows, but it is all but unavoidable nowadays with, so much of the market movements tied to Trump's news on the tariffs. He's, brought up new tariffs coming out, said that he's going to cancel them, raised it up. I really don't think anyone has a good indication of what's going on. But he has self dubbed tomorrow Liberation Day, where he's going to make a massive announcement on tariffs that are supposed to impact the broader market. So that kind of sets up the whole discussion for today. And I will continue on with the episode talking about some broader AI themes, what to look forward to in the crypto market. But tomorrow is certainly going to set the stage for weeks to come. On one hand, we have been really oversold the last couple of weeks. And I'm not sure if you guys are seeing the same timeline that I am, but I would say that the sentiment on Twitter has been some of the worst I've ever seen it. And a lot of the metrics, a lot of posts that are out there just kind of allude to this looming recession that we have. And I know as a result, there is a lot of hedging against that sort of market reaction. So we definitely could go lower. And I think tomorrow, if there is huge news on tariffs, if it's bigger than expected, I think some of the consensus is just 20% on certain partners. Trump did tweet stuff today alluding to tariffs on the entire world. So it's really going to be interesting to see how it comes into effect. But I would say that a lot of that has been priced in, or a lot of the positioning has been in preparation for a major sell off. So I do think that it is very possible that if the news comes out later than expected tomorrow, if it's more of the same, or if there is news in terms of him revoking tariffs or anything remotely bullish, I definitely think the market has a chance to bounce back a lot because of positioning. Now, if we go higher from there, hard to say. I really could see it, being a bear squeeze for a little bit, then getting a little bit of upside, and then continuing to chop and returning further down. I do think people are kind of waiting for a bounce to offload some of their positions. But it's really going to be interesting. The market has gotten into quite a precarious spot over the past couple of weeks. So tomorrow is really going to be major. I'm personally just trying to sideline as best as I can. I do have some longs on that, are just personal things that I DCA into. But I would really just be looking to fading the edges type of play. I could really see some initial reactions of sharp selling and then back to buying, buying into selling. So I really wouldn't take too sharp a positioning until you're able to watch the market digest all of that data. But I do think that now is a decent time to capitalize on some of that volatility in the market. Notably, we've seen shitcoins this past week have gotten a decent return of interest. We've had stuff like Giblification, Titcoin. Coins like that have, really been good plays for entrants, even though they're smaller market cap. There's really some solid multiples to be seen, and compared to a couple months ago, shitcoins were really, really fast paced, where pumps would only sustain for a couple of hours to, in some cases, maybe an hour tops. These pumps have taken out over the course of a couple of days. So I think there is some desire for risk assets here. Again, I think you really need to see how the tariff news is digested tomorrow. But I think there's certainly the chance for some good trades to be made. So definitely be glued in. I will definitely be there with you, and hopefully we can make some sense of what's going on there. All right, let me take a quick sip of water, and then I will continue with the market updates. Alrighty. So that kind of sets the stage for tomorrow. And as I mentioned, there is a lot of chop and uncertainty in the market. And with this being the final episode of Does Compute, I really did want to just make a point, something that I've been thinking on a lot. And that is just the undeniability of AI in our society moving forward. And it's difficult at times to bring up these types of topics without sounding very profound or like fake profound. Like here I am being like, this is going to be the most significant tech of our lifetime. And I'm sure you've heard people talk in that manner before, and it's very buzzwordy, but I really do think it's true. Going back to this idea of the giblification, which we saw the meme coin of, that really was just such a moment for AI where we saw the fun that people had, how quickly it can captivate people's attention, but also how high quality the outputs were. For a few years now, we've seen AI, and people have always talked and theorized about this future state where AI is replacing our jobs or AI is doing things and leaving humans obsolete. But certainly, with just the speed of the outputs that it was putting out and how quality they were, and just how many different scenarios it adapted to, it really does give you a clearer image of what AI is capable of doing. And with giblification, you also see that it doesn't have to be a really large consumer use case. I think all too often we see people who are just trying to promote or market a new version of ChatGPT, Claude, any LLM. I don't think it needs to be this giant billion, $1 trillion company coming out. I definitely think the market is hungry and really enjoys simple use cases like a certain image generation style. We've seen markets form just around chatbots. So I think the iteration can certainly be there. But the thing to keep in mind here is just the prominence of AI moving forward. That is not at all going to go away. So put this in the scope and the perspective of the big day tomorrow. Whether we go up, whether the market comes down in craters, you should really try your best to keep an eye on the pulse of AI, because at some point there's going to be more projects that arise. And the closer you can be to understanding what products and what suites are there for AI, the sooner you're going to find an emerging market of whatever that next asset class is. And this is just like, I would say, the most important theme you could take away from this show over the past couple weeks is that AI, especially in crypto, is still very, very young. And I was just reflecting on this personally yesterday. I mean, think of your own personal journey in crypto. For me, it's been 4 years, but that just felt like an absolute lifetime ago. In terms of, again, this like commercial use AI for the everyday person, it's really only been a couple of years. So it's still so young. And think about 4 years from now, just how much that journey can change, how many different paths it can go on. I don't think we're really able to comprehend that tech. And again, I try not to talk in terms like this too often because it is very buzzwordy and like, oh, how profound. But that really is what AI is going to be. That was the whole onus of me creating the show in the first place, is to just highlight that this is probably going to be one of the most notable asset classes we see moving forward. So I would really just keep your eyes glued to that in crypto and all of crypto's next iterations. And again, regardless of what happens with tariff tomorrow, the best opportunities always happen from a period of emerging assets. And sometimes it's re-emerging assets, right? Phoenix out the ashes. If you're looking at meme coins right now when things are beaten down, you're going to have a good opportunity to hit 5, 10, 50 X's. But the same thing is going to happen with AI in a month or a year if we do see finally real world assets, if we see a new type of application powered by AI that we haven't seen before. Maybe there's a new way to classify songs that we haven't really quite seen success with NFTs. Maybe it's still NFTs, but instead of, cartoon images, we're looking at highly detailed 3D models. There's for sure going to be more integration with AI into crypto, and there's going to be something that sticks. I think there's going to be a lot of iterations through it, but I don't think it's ever too soon to start thinking about the long game and just thinking about how you're going to play this, because it really is a marathon with crypto, as we've seen. Like we've been through cycles. Whether you're old or new here, if you've spent even a week in crypto, you know how quickly things can change. So just wanted to take that moment here in the final episode to really just highlight what it's all about at the end of the day is making sense of AI. It's just going to be such a value add for you. I'm sure there's threads out there. I mean, this isn't breaking news. AI is important, but really just have that front and foremost as your mind as a trader, and just stay curious, because I think it's really easy to just let the trends come to you after they're on the way out. But if you can go out, search for those new trends, find things that are cool to you before other people really know about them, that's going to just be a huge edge in trading. Because we've seen now, like, the crypto markets have gotten so expansive and thinned out. That's a topic that I've really brought up in a lot of interviews over the show, but like, no one person can pay attention to everything in the crypto space. And where I see people have had some really great success with trading, with farming, is just in this huge noise sphere, finding their own little pocket of, oh wow, this area is cool, I'm going to trade here. We got Mr. Silva in the crowd, and he's done a remarkable job of identifying fantasy top as an opportunity, really locking in a lot of attention on that, and he's consistently finding good plays to make even when the market is in a bear market. So if you're able to do that with AI trends, as the market continues to develop and you can spot, like, hey, here's this new tool, there's going to be more and more coming out at once. So not like everyone's not going to be discovering things at the same time. And if you can discover something new early, become an expert in that area, there's going to be ways to profit off of it. So I would really just, again, understand that, understand the paths forward for AI, just start to let your mind wander, think about what opportunities will present themselves, and then be prepared to take advantage of them when they come. All right, I'm going to take another sip of water. Usually have a guest for these types of show, and I just love to rant. But give me just 2 more seconds here so I can take a breather, and we will move on to our next topic. So this is a topic that I wanted to bring up here, and honestly, I thought about what I was going to say in this episode yesterday, and a lot of it was like, I just want to think of what are the most significant things I can bring up to the viewer. I really just have broad themes here, but over the past couple of weeks, and just someone who's been a daily participant in crypto for years, I really wanted to think of, like, how could I frame this for the broad future, right? I don't have too many specific actions things for you, but really, again, we wanted to talk about the significance of AI. Another thing I really wanted to talk about is just trading and trading behavior. This to me is something that I've noticed just going through the timeline recently, and again, going back to this concept of there are so many things going on in crypto at any given time. And something that I wanted to bring up that I think is a at least my perspective on the market, I think there are a lot of market participants who have a hard time accepting a cycle is over, or accepting moving on from one portion of the market to the next. Now, I bring this up because within the past week, Taproot Wizards finally minted out. People minted them at zero point 0.2 Bitcoin, and now they're already down to about 0.15. So people are below mint on what was supposed to be the most hyped ordinals projects to date. And reflecting back on my own hosting career here for a second, I used to co-host a show in MVHQ servers with WAFDog, and our whole show was dedicated to ordinals. So here I am, someone who at the time was speaking with conviction and vigor on ordinals the same way I am in Does Compute with AI, and I thought that was the thing. And that market has largely gone away. Now, I'm not trying to say this to poke holes or make anyone who's still invested in ordinals feel bad. I think there is a chance that ordinals does have a resurgence. But me personally, as a trader, when I saw that ordinals was losing a lot of mind share, and that runes really weren't performing, because runes was supposed to be the next big iteration of ordinals, it was supposed to be what brought them mainstream. That never really caught on. For me, that was a big indication of it's time to look elsewhere. And I sold all of my ordinals and runes and began an exit out of that market. And I did the same thing in 2022, end of 2022, 2023 with NFTs. Really started to just see the writing on the walls. Um, that one was tied to Yuga Labs with their other side mint. I was talking to Lizard Capital, who I've had on a guest on the show before. Both of us kind of realized the extraction that was about to happen in the market. And if you looked at the secondary action on this Yuga Lands lab, you could see that just like the hype and the structure that held up NFTs, it wasn't really there. And the same thing with AI. in the past cycle that we've had. And again, going back to my point of preparing for the future, there's going to be more cycles, right? I'm not saying any of this to be a doomer or a gloomer on the state of crypto. I think the casino will always stay open and people will find iterations to trade in it. But I think what can really elevate your game as a trader is being honest with yourself as to where is the market heading and where is the edge had. And if you don't know where the edge is at, it's not something that you need to force. You can always just sit on your hands. I think that's some of the best practice that I've been really trying to instill in myself recently. But again, just kind of identifying when the market is dying down. And I really wish I did that better this time, especially just with the shitcoin cycle, and AI as well. I really had a hot start to AI with some trades in virtuals and was able to parlay a lot of that with shitcoins popping off at the same time. If there ever was a time to just see extraction in the space, it was with Trump coin and just knowing how much was being pulled out. And what's interesting is there was a solid month after Trump coin, or at least a couple of weeks, where it was just extraction play after extraction play after extraction play, and you could see the coins selling down around it. Now, again, this is in hindsight. I didn't play it perfectly, but at a certain point when it became obvious of, hey, this is really bloody, I would sell and take a lot of losses. And this is not me being like, I did this right. I did not play it right by any means. But I at least played it well enough where I was able to walk away and live to trade another day and still had capitalized on that cycle. And just again, from just the guests that I've talked to, from being an active participant in MVHQ, seeing what other traders are, just knowing that right now is a really, really difficult market where there's not a lot going on. In terms of things that I can distill and just leave you with in a broad sense, it is to just be ready to pivot. Because as there's new technology and there's new innovations, where the limelight on the market is could rotate so quickly. So just reflect on the market that we've had, reflect on the different cycles of crypto. It really seems like things get faster and faster, and I really just attribute that to technology. It's not just crypto that's specific in, it's the global markets all over the place just get way faster when you introduce stuff like algorithmic trading, bots, whatever else, whatever you want to call it. But again, this is just be ready to pivot. Don't get married to any concept for too long in crypto. Even though I do think AI will be that undercurrent of what the asset class will look like, what iteration it is and like how relevant something AI related or not can be in crypto can really change on a dime. So I just wanted to highlight that for anyone who's listening, because at the end of the day, we're all just trying to be better traders and profit on the market. And I do think in crypto specifically, as opposed to other markets, it's really easy to form bag bias and feel emotionally attached to your bags. I think that's just a nature of the marketing that goes into it. A lot of the hype, a lot of the memes. If it's NFTs, then a lot of the art that's involved, sort of the community that forms around them. It's so easy to fall into that stuff and have a hard time. But I do think that that is just a really important mindset and skill to be able to develop in crypto, because a company like Nvidia in the stock market, it's not like that's just going to fall out of favor within a day. But in terms of a meme coin, they fall out within a couple of hours. So you really just have to have that mentality to pivot. I think that's just a really big takeaway that I wanted to share in this episode here. And with that, another water break, and we'll be back with more Does Compute. Alrighty. So gonna round it out here because it's just been a ton of broad topics, but I will keep it going with some broad topics. And this might seem a little hypocritical after my last statement on pivoting, but the other thing I wanted to bring up in terms of just broad crypto strategy or ideas that I can share is the importance of conviction in the market. And by conviction, I mean not only conviction in the asset, but conviction in yourself. This is something that I've been reflecting on personally over the past couple of months. I think as a trader, it's really easy to conflate and intertwine your own self worth with your trading what the state of the market is. And having conviction in something is a difficult thing to do because it's really easy to believe in something. Like, I, again, founded this show with MVHQ a few months ago because I woke up and had a feverish conviction for AI tokens. I really thought with all certainty that the AI crypto crossover was going to be one that lasted all through 2024 and 2025. It looked so hot out the gate. It seemed like this is what crypto has been waiting for all these years, was just genuine utility, and it was short-lived, right? It had some good moments, but it was short-lived. But it was still at the start this crazy conviction of this is the real thing that allowed me to take action and to make the bet on something new. And again, tying it back to an earlier theme from this spiel of just emerging assets. And it was the same conviction that led me to find NFTs in the first place. And whatever your experience in crypto is, wherever you are along your journey, I am sure that at some point you have found an asset or started trading and had people tell you that you're crazy or that crypto is a scam or whatever else it was, but you fought through it and placed a trade because you had a belief. And I just think that nowadays those beliefs are all outsourced and we are so reliant on influencers and metrics and other people to tell us what's going to happen. And I just think, again, going back to this broad market, where are we going to be in years from now? What is crypto going to look like? There's just so many takes out there. And again, the sentiment on Twitter is just so bad. You see posts all the time about, oh, well, we always wanted crypto to be decentralized, but now the banks are in the game. I mean, guys, this is just where the game is headed. There's not really any way to hit the undo button. We can't control the future. We can only ever think in probabilities. That's just the nature of any market and any trade that you're going to put on. So just have conviction in something and have conviction in yourself. Really take the time to discover what your edge is. There's going to be emerging markets that you test out that don't stick, but there's going to be some emerging markets that if you believe enough in, like, hey, this might sound crazy, but I think there's something there. Again, you can carve out that area of expertise. I'm going to point again to Silva with Fantasy Top. Like, I'll be the first one to admit, right? The Blast ecosystem, it didn't pan out in the airdrop the way I thought. I just left that ecosystem entirely. I didn't believe in it. Silva had the conviction and the belief of this is fun. This is a platform where you can do something. The man's consistently out here trading and making profit in just the worst market imaginable where there's like far and few opportunities in the market. And that comes down to conviction, belief in his self. And that's like, again, just a prevailing theme in crypto that I really wanted to just part moving forward because it always has to be there. And it doesn't have to be anything super, super deep. Like, I'm not, again, here I go being like, you have to have belief in yourself. It doesn't have to be that deep. You could just be like, hey, I think this is going to be a good trade. But do keep an open mind, find beliefs, get creative with different ways to make money. I'm really sure that in this digital age that we're getting in, that's just more and more stuff is being digitized and tokenized. There's going to be some really crazy bubbles. There's going to be some really crazy things that people are going to be like, how could that possibly be? How could that work? And you're going to be the richest motherfucker because you took a bet on yourself. So, really just wanted to, again, emphasize this, start thinking about the future. I know these are like objectively some scary market times where there's just a lot of uncertainty right now. But even if the market does get bad, there's going to be ways to get out of it. And speaking of the market getting bad, we will use that as the next part of the rant. I know you know the drill by now. I need to get some water. I need to take some breaths. I have just been ranting for 5 minutes at my phone straight. So let me just catch my breath for 10 seconds. And then we'll talk about how to play the meltdown if it does come. All right. And we're back. So here's the gist. I'm trying to kind of like layer these thoughts in and build as much as I can. And I don't have a set itinerary because I usually just let the conversation flow with a guest. But here I am just conversating to myself as my girlfriend works a normal job in the background. I wanted to talk a little bit about what to do if we do enter in a recession. And this is something that I have really been wondering myself because I was alive in 2008 and I do remember there being a recession in my, familial life and just seeing how it affected people around me, but it's not something that I really experienced as a trader. And it's scary. And I just wanted to acknowledge that on a more human note at this time because, again, I think the sentiment on crypto Twitter is just really bad right now. And I think there's definitely a lot of people out there who, again, with like how your net worth and the position of your trades can just impact your self belief and your confidence. If you are still in the market, still have a lot of skin in the game, which most of us or a lot of us do, it can just be really difficult to think of executing trades as you're watching things grind down. So there are people who are calling for much lower. They're calling for a recession. Who knows how far it's going to fall? Is it going to be Bitcoin sub 60K? Is it going to be Solana sub 100? Nobody really knows. But in an event that we find ourselves at a huge pullback, I'm sure, there's going to be a lot of uncertainty of what to do. I would say some of the best ways that I've thought about approaching it are to, again, find conviction in dollar cost average into things you really believe in. Now, I think the reason I would start with that and build from there is because it's just going to take a lot of the uncertainty and stress away from it. And something that I've learned as a trader myself is that going in with a plan can really take a lot of the emotions out of it. And again, if we're talking about genuinely a recession or a huge pullback, there are going to be a lot of emotions involved. Certainly, if you're out here trying to catch the knife, I know a lot of people on the timeline tend to set up these leverage longs or just these hero trades of, hey, I bottom ticked it. And then you see the other side of that where there's people who get liquidated. There's, of course, people who make millions. But unless you're involved in some insider trading cabal, in which case, please add me to that group chat. But if you're not in one of those, then I would really just dollar cost average into assets that you think are going to stand the test of time. I've personally really found that this year with Bitcoin. I definitely think I'm becoming a Bitcoin maxi. I don't know why I'm laughing saying that. Sounds like I just came out as a Bitcoin maxi. Um, but yeah, like it's just a conviction that I've genuinely felt build over the years. I used to hear people talk about Bitcoin in such a um, fervent way, and I didn't really understand it because at the time it seemed like stuff like Ethereum made way more sense, where you could transact faster. And then Solana, once it had usable infrastructure and even faster speeds and lower fees. Like, I think in terms of chains that are out there, that makes, a lot of sense to just use the chain where the people are using it. But if you compare Bitcoin to something like CryptoPunks, where it's just undisputed the start of everything, it's like the start of NFTs. That was the one that put them on the map. There's always going to be the collectors of CryptoPunks. So when you look at Bitcoin, the finite nature of its supply, it just can't be stated enough how huge that is, especially in this digital age. I know gold is going crazy right now. It's even outperforming Bitcoin, and it's really just like the top performing asset right now. But in terms of its finite supply, I don't think you can really, you know, undermine how important that is. I also think that because it is the OG, the one that started all, the first, crypto, that it's always going to have that place as a collectible and as something that people use to peg value to and figure out how high can other chains go. And this is all speculative, right? Because again, this is my own personal belief that I found myself having just after using ordinals more, seeing ordinals kind of like come and go, but really realizing that Bitcoin and just the value that it has and the narrative that's underlying it is so important. It's still speculative because we don't know what's going to happen, right? Where there's so many big players in the game now with banks and people like Michael Saylor who effectively own what, like, I guess 2% of the supply, 3% of the supply. So the fact that you have these giant players getting into the game, I don't know what personally happens with Bitcoin. I do just have so much belief in it. Um, and I think if you can figure out that belief, tying this all back to DCAing, it makes it so much easier for you to buy when there are dips. And as I've had this new conviction with Bitcoin, this is this year, right? So this isn't like something that I have a $10,000 cost average into. This is something that I've bought when it was 60K. I have bought it when it's 110K. Like, I have just been buying Bitcoin and continue to dollar cost average as the price goes up and down and just continue to add to it because I have so much belief in it. And with crypto specifically, I would try, and again, this is in a hypothetical recession pullback scenario, I would try to focus on things that will be there. And it doesn't have to be crypto, is the other thing as well. I've seen some really big traders in the space. I believe it was Keyboard Cat. He was talking about wanting to go super long on TQQQ and Tesla. And he cited the time he would buy as, quote, when you can see the whites in their eyes. Now, that's a bit of a morbid take, but he's really saying he's waiting for max pain in the recession. And again, in an actual recession scenario, and not being a doomer or a gloomer here, just hypothetically, if we do enter into one of those, it's going to be painful because you see the sentiment of traders right now. And I mean, Bitcoin's still literally at what, like 85K? So, crypto, if you look at the majors and some other markers, it's relatively okay. And the pain that's felt is just crazy. So, if we enter into a recession, I would try not to be that hero that's going to catch random shit as it's falling, right? Like, I really do think a lot of those altcoins that got propped up this cycle, um, it's weird now. There's a lot of like politics that's intertwined with it, but stuff like XRP that's just gone absolutely mental over the past year. Some of these lesser chains, not lesser, but just like not as heavily used chains like Tron, Sui, Say, I'm sure they could have a role in crypto moving forward, but I wouldn't argue that they have the same importance in the space as stuff like Solana and Bitcoin. So I would really just try to find things that you believe in no matter what and just try to buy and keep buying and keep buying. Give yourself the runway and the cash to dollar cost average into those things to the point of it doesn't have to be crypto. Again, AI, I think, is just such a no-brainer prolific trade. Even if there is a major recession, and I keep playing this thought experiment, how do you ever do without a company like Nvidia? How do you ever do away with companies like OpenAI that have just such a tech moat? We have seen companies like DeepSeek come out and you know, gain some of that control. But I mean, shit, man, like growing up, I have heard so many people my age and people talk about all the time. Oh, if I had just bought Apple 30 years ago, Google 30 years ago, Amazon 30 years ago, like here we are with that level of innovative tech within AI. And yeah, I get it, right? Like a lot of that price has already been reflected in the market. But again, we're in the infancy of AI. We're still just looking at tools like giblification and creating fun images just like for fun. And obviously, there are AI tools that have replaced a lot of work that we've seen. Just think about how insane they're going to be able to get AI ramped up. Think about when we have AI integrated commonplace into physical hardware that's out there, if it's robots, if it's cars, if it's anything else, just the things that are a cornerstone and become cornerstones to our society, that sort of bet on technology, I mean, that's like, life changing money if you play it appropriately. And if you look at this all again through the lens of a hypothetical recession, I think some of those tech companies will be really, really good deals at that point in time because they're just going to be held down and suppressed by no other means than just the macro. So I would start thinking in terms of technology you believe in, conviction you believe in. Hopefully, we're starting to create a nice little Venn diagram of all these little themes that we've talked about this episode of just how you can find really good opportunities as they present themselves. And even if it does get a little doom and gloom with the market, just still have some belief. Think of everything in terms of risk reward, approach it from an EV perspective. Even if Nvidia goes to $50, If you still have belief in technology and computer chips and AI moving forward, then that could be the bet that changes your life around. Because when we pop out of there, you're gonna just have such a great DCA, a rare opportunity to buy such a sought after asset at such a low price. So again, this is the hypothetical. What would I do in a recession? I would really look to DCA into things. And the other part of that is I would look to simplify your life a little bit. Something that I've learned after trading crypto in the past 4 years is that oftentimes your cycle is made by just a few really big trades. There are people who really do execute super well in a rapid fire manner. They can put on trade after trade after trade and day trade super effectively. But I think more often you hear of people who made it out of the trenches because they had a huge win on something like whiff, or they saw Solana early on, or had vision in NFTs and did great on art blocks. Whatever it is, it's usually a small body of trades that they just had such clarity as they executed them. And as we go into, not as we go into, in this hypothetical, as we're going into a hypothetical recession, um, I think there's going to be the temptation to try to make trades happen because we've been in a trading market for the last couple of years. And I would caution you, if that is the mindset you have going into it, because I think what you want to do in a situation like that is let the market come to you. I think that's always the case. You should let the market come to you. And I've talked to some friends about that. That term doesn't always translate super well. Like, how do I let the market come to me? Am I going to not look for trade setups? Am I going to not go on Twitter and see what people are talking about? No, definitely still do those things. But in terms of letting the market come to you, it's like, don't lie to yourself and take a trade that you're not super convicted in. Don't see something that's good and then say, this is a great trade. Like, wait for something that truly is a great trade where it checks all of your boxes for however you define what is a great trade for you. If it's something that has great sentiment on Twitter, if it's something that has fair P to E ratio, like whatever it is, just wait for those opportunities to present themselves, because if you're in a bull market, you can get bailed out a lot just by nature of people speculating on things. I know for sure there's been plenty of times in this bull run when AI was hot that I bought like a subpar AI project that as I dove deeper into it, I noticed, yeah, this is just recycled tech, or, oh, geez, this is kind of like vaporware. Probably shouldn't have bought that. Stuff like that can still really run during a bull market, and your probability of winning isn't too hampered. But in this hypothetical recession we might go into, it's going to be a lot harder to get that kind of escape velocity on stuff. And even if you're going to trade to the downside, I don't know how many of you guys have traded in the bear market or have tried to go short. It's really difficult. The timing is just a lot harder to stick, especially with stuff like puts. Like the IV in terms of options, but also just like how the market mechanics go on the way down. It's a lot different than the way up. It's usually just a lot of grinding and then very steep moves down for a very short period of time, usually through liquidations when you see that kind of price action. But it can be really difficult. So, again, just for any trade that you're taking, long or short, stocks or crypto, I would just do your best to like declutter a little bit. Try to focus on things you really believe in, you feel comfortable buying more into. Spend your time researching new things so that when the tides do turn and the market comes back to life, you'll be there glued in, and then you can take advantage of wherever the hot asset in the market is. And if you just spend less of your time trying to trade and you just kind of accept, hey, things are going down, all I can really do is just buy more of these assets I believe in as we go down and then get ready to hit it when it's back, that's going to save you so much mental turmoil. Just so much, right? And going back to the theme of like belief in yourself, ability to execute, if you just let the market like tear you apart on the way down, it'll do it. Like it really is a mindset in terms of how you approach trading. It's such a mental game, so just do your best to mentally prepare. And again, I don't know if you guys are sidelined. If you are, that's awesome. Have some cash ready to buy whatever you want to buy. But there's just so much uncertainty in the world right now that however it shapes up, you just want to be prepared to trade your best, be the best version of yourself, and show up. And I think a lot of that is just kind of slowing it down, not trying to do too much with it. I wouldn't be buying different things across the board. I wouldn't be just like knee jerk reacting to people on crypto Twitter being like, oh my God, our NFT's back. We had 10 punk sales this week. For sure, right? Like those are happening. Those are definitely real data points. Um, Punks could double up in floor price by tomorrow. Who knows? But if you're just looking at it from like an expected value position, how do you make the most out of the trader? I'd say more times than not, you'll probably do more damage to yourself by taking a trade in uncertainty than just waiting. So this is one of the most difficult skills, at least for me personally, as a trader, is just sitting still and knowing when not to do anything. I definitely think in this scenario where the markets get worse from here, I would try to do less. And if it means touching grass a little bit more, taking time offline, if that's what helps you not take those trades, then do it. If you think you can still, spend all time online learning things and digging in, do that too. But man, that's gonna just be super important over the next couple of months. So I hope if you're listening, you're thinking about this for yourself. This is all just me rambling on about things that I think are important in coming weeks and months here, but I hope it's resonating with some of you out there because I really do think that's gonna just help tremendously in some of these uncertain times that we're having. All right. Well, at this point, I have been up here rambling for quite a while. My throat is starting to get a little sore just from talking, being all verbose up here. But I do want to wrap it up with just a sincere and final thank you guys so much. A huge shout out to Poopaloop. Just appreciate you, dude. Poop got me into MVHQ a couple of years ago, hosting some events. I really have no idea how many events I has hosted in my tenure at MVHQ. I would imagine it's a few hundred at this point. But he has just given me, so much freedom and really let me just lean into my creativity and desire to be an MC and host these kinds of events over the past couple of years. For that, insanely grateful to MVHQ. Can't thank everyone enough. I see Jake, Jinzo, G6. Thank you, boys. It's been an absolute delight and pleasure. And we've just had so many cool guests that I've talked to. We've also had so many annoying guests that I've talked to over the years. But I say that tongue in cheek because, like, regardless of who the guest is, if there was ever an opportunity for us to learn something, we were all over it. We were there. We were in the trenches talking to them. And MVHQ does it like no other. Sincerely, sincerely, it's just been such a great community to be in. There's always stuff to learn. You always have a pulse on the market, no matter if it is a hypothetical recession or a soft landing on Liberation Day tomorrow. If the market comes back, I'm going to be in those servers trying to trade and make some money there. But yeah, it has just been so beyond cool getting to host these things, talk to some awesome people, some awesome traders. But I will still for sure be there in MVHQ. The show sadly just had to come to a close due to some personal things I got going on in the background there. But do not fret, MVHQ servers are going to be there. They're going to be there for you to join and trade in if you're not already a part of our community. But this has been Does Compute. I really hope that over the past couple of months, you've been able to learn some new stuff about AI, hear some really honest and sincere conversations. That was my deepest goal with the show, is just to have real people have real dialogue. And hey, if you have listened for the past 50 minutes to me ramble on, my hat is off to you because that's some crazy shit. But really appreciate all of you guys. Thank you once again for tuning in to Does Compute. Thank you all for tuning in to MVHQ. Until next time, I'm Ross Boss, and I'll see you around.